Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I think we'll kick off and start into our introduction to the panel today. Welcome, everybody. We're really thrilled to have you join us for today's panel session on managing complex programs and projects. Lessons learned from the GovAI Coalition. My name is Rich Oppenheim. I will be your facilitator for today's session. I work at Regional Government Services, a joint powers authority here in California, serving the needs of other local government agencies, and they are sponsoring today's panel session. I serve here as RGS's overall administrative services manager and manage RGS's training services, which deliver a variety of training academies and webinars focused on developing local government employees. So the subject of AI is particularly important to me as RGS embraces AI for its own operations, but also through the training lens of what local government employees need to know about AI. And RGS is a member of the Government Coalition itself, and I lead the coalition's AI education working group focused on developing and curating training resources to help its member agencies learn to implement AI responsibly. So I'm joined on the RGS side today by our technical host, Nancy Parchevsky. So that's Nancy there. She'll be helping us today with the technical aspects of today's session and helping me and our panelists stay on schedule as needed. Nancy, any housekeeping we need to address today?
Yes, I just want to let everybody know this is being recorded and we are going to make that available for you. We will also send out a link to everyone who's attended. We have, if you look at the little menu at the bottom, we have a Q&A. If you want to pop your questions in there during our panel, we will have a Q&A, a live Q&A towards the end. And also at that time, I will fix it so you can raise your hands if you have a question. And also the chat should be open for you and also the Q&A, obviously. And if you have any technical problems, please feel free to reach out. I'm here to help.
Great. Thanks so much, Nancy. And I just want to say this up front because I know we'll get a lot of questions about this, but we are recording today's panel session and this will be made available later. We will send a link out around to people and it will also be posted on our website for people to access moving forward. Um, and we do love an active chat. So, things are resonating with you as you hear our panelists speak today. You have ideas or thoughts or aha moments, go ahead and put those in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and hear how the content is reaching you. So again, just wanted to give a warm welcome to everybody who's here today. These panel sessions are brought to us and made possible because of RGS's Management Institute, which is the 6-month leadership development program for local government managers. So a special shout out to this year's cohort that is present in the audience today for today's panel. Also, welcome to those coming in from our other active academies and alumni of the training programs that might be joining us today. I was looking at the attendee list before this, and we are also joined beyond that by a very diverse group of attendees from local government, including cities, counties, special districts, and JPAs, as well as attendees from nonprofit agencies, some academic institution representation there, and some private sector institutions actually as well. So we are really pleased to see this mix of parties that are coming together today and interested in the content that we're putting forward today. So just a brief overview. Today, we're going to be hearing from some of the builders of the GovAI Coalition who have been on the forefront of helping local governments navigate AI adoption through this complex multi-agency collaboration. Our discussion is really going to get into how the GovAI Coalition was formed and how it's grown, lessons we can apply from their collaborative effort towards our own goals and programs in government, and the role of AI in government today and the resources that exist to help agencies implement AI responsibly. We will wrap up with a live Q&A, so please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A tool, as Nancy mentioned on the meeting platform, and we'll address as many as we can when we get to that section. So to kick us off, I'd love for our panelists to introduce themselves. And if each of you could briefly sort of state your name, your title, where you're working, a little bit about your background and your connection to the GovAI Coalition, that would be great. And Albert, do you want to kick us off?
For sure, Rich. Thank you so much for having us, and great to be speaking amongst peers in this wonderful panel. My name is Albert Jahami. I my day job, I work as the AI and privacy officer for the city of San Jose. And one of the biggest things that we learned very quickly was using AI responsibly requires teamwork. The same AI models that I'm using are the same ones that Kansas City, Missouri is using, St. Paul, Minnesota is using. And that by joining together in a coalition, we're able to have not only we're able to learn from each other, grow from each other, and we're also able to have a united voice in talking with the players, the massive players in this space to influence the industry. So um, just really excited to be here. And we got started with the GovAI Coalition simply with that and growing it from there. Um, yeah.
Great. Jamie, you want to go next?
You bet. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Waskalis. I am the Chief Information Officer at the City of St. Paul in Minnesota. I live in Minneapolis, so I'm living my best life in both of the amazing Twin Cities here in Minnesota. I've been in my position for 2.5 years. I started here at the City of St. Paul in November of 2022. Is that right? Or 2023? Whatever the month ChatGPT came out. And so I knew I had my work cut out for me, especially coming into a city where our mayor really believes in a city that works for all. And so I got connected with Albert, with Andrew early on when the thoughts of this kind of coalition were just coming together. And there were a couple of us at a CIO conference once the idea came forward and someone was asking for volunteers who would like to help with this. And I'm like, hugely me, because I know this is going to be big. I spent a decade in higher education. Local government is a little bit different than that. Adding on to AI, I knew that I needed to find some great collaborators, and I definitely have in the people you see here, and then the literally thousands of people who are part of the coalition.
Great. Thank you. And last but not least, Andrew.
Good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Nui, Chief Digital Officer for the City of Kansas City in Missouri. The work that we're doing in the GovAI Coalition, I remember from the start, there was this whole list of priorities of how do we even think about, what is responsible AI? Should it be just a NIST thing that we just copy over, or do we actually prioritize it? And I guess my small claim to fame is like, hey, maybe you should put human-centered first in that policy. I don't know if Albert remembers that, but that was a long time ago. And well, not actually a very long time ago. It just feels like a really long time ago. And so the work that we're doing here and learning from the GovAI Coalition is how to implement it in your city, in your agency, in a very meaningful way that is not only top down, but also bottom up. And so I invite you to think about it from this perspective, because ultimately we're serving the people and that live and work in our regions. And so, I invite you to think about it from that perspective.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And Albert, would you give us the sort of the high level view of what the coalition is and what it does?
Absolutely. So I think you heard a little bit about it from each of us. GovAI Coalition, it got its start in the September, October of 2023. We started with around 50 folks from roughly 40 different government agencies, city, state agencies, special districts, and we've grown to over 2,000 members across over 700 unique government agencies, ranging from your local to your federal. We are all focused around the end-to-end of using AI for the public good. So what does that mean? It means answering the questions from how do you put an AI policy in place? How do you ensure that your data is ready for AI? How do you actually take all that and then do something useful with it? What are those use cases that you can start today and you might want to invest in tomorrow? Who do you partner with, right? Who are the vendors that you should be thinking about? Who's pushing for transparent, usable AI? All of those aspects we are working to support and handle agencies so that if an agency is coming in today and they're like, I don't even know where to start when it comes to using AI, governing it, whatever, right? They can go right to, and I just put the link in the chat, they can go right to our resources. We just released our second version of all of our resources so that you can catch up. You can get 90% of the way there. And, I was talking with an agency just last week, and they said something that really encapsulates it. It's they're copying from us so that 6 months from now, we can copy from them. And it's all about that mutual learning, that mutual support that we're bringing together because AI changes so quickly. But if each one of us can learn a little bit about how to use it, a little bit around how to use it responsibly, we can show each other how to do that and we become better as a whole. So, really, from use cases, applications, governance, purchasing, we're here to support that. And we just encourage folks to learn more about it.
Great. Thank you so much. And it's amazing how much you've grown. And I think that growth has been part of that growth has been this collaborative effort, and building into this, quite large national initiative supporting AI adoption. So, but every big initiative like that, and we touched on this a little bit, but every big initiative has a starting point. And I'm curious if you can talk a little more about like what sparked the idea to form the coalition, like what were the pain points and the problem you were starting to solve, and anybody who wants to jump in can address that first.
Well, I really think Albert is the origin story here. So I'm sorry, but we're going to have to have him
All
speak
right.
to this a little bit more.
All right. All right. No, I appreciate it, Jamie. So look, I was thinking on this question right before the call, and I think the phrase coalition really brings to the forefront how it started in so many different spaces all at once, and it takes everyone to push it forward and continue to start it every day. If you want to talk about date, maybe the first start was when Layla Doty, one of my teammates, turned to me and said, "Hey, Albert, we should start thinking about governing AI." And we tried talking to some of the big four players in AI, and they did not respond to any of our asks because we were one city, and we realized we had to get things together. You could say it started when Khalid Tawfiq, my CIO and the chair of our board at the coalition, went to Mix, which is a group of CIOs that Jamie's a part of, and got our first 50 cities on board to get started on the coalition. You could say it was the day that I met up with Emily from City of San Antonio and started talking about creating an AI fact sheet, which is a nutrition facts for an AI system so that we can understand how to use it effectively and responsibly. But the fact is, and this is something that's really stuck with me ever since Khalid said it to me, the coalition can only function when everyone feels like they own it. When everyone feels like this part or this entire coalition would not exist or would not be able to function without me. And everyone on this call is running a substantial part of the coalition that simply would not be able to exist without them and without all the great folks that are working on it together. So to say that, that's where the conversation started, but it really takes everyone to push that conversation forward every day.
That's great. And Jamie, Andrew, anything you want to add to that?
I want to go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Andrew.
No, no, please go.
I'll add that, it really is about everybody coming together to do something that we all have to do. I've spent a lot of time in the public sector, mostly in higher ed, and I had colleagues across the country, right, who were doing the same things. We're working with the same systems. Why are we doing it alone? Why don't we share our resources better? And we are just like taking that and just reinventing that with the GovAI Coalition. I don't have the resources to do all of this work myself. Nobody does in the public sector. And so we are so excited. I am going to volunteer hundreds of hours of time because I know what I'm going to get from that. I'm going to get an AI policy that is solid, that I can get through our systems. And so, I mean, just the energy and just the drive that people have who are coming here to help out. And again, like if you just take from us, perfect, awesome, because we know that's going to jump you forward and you're going to help us in the future.
Yeah, if I can build on that, I think we've all heard of the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I kind of added my own spin 10 years ago. If you want to do the impossible, found a team. And so I'm privileged to be here with you, Rich, Albert, Jamie, and all the others on the GovAI Coalition to actually do this. And Jamie, I remember, I think it was you who said, for government, by government. Was that correct?
I think many of us have said that, Andrew. It's a collaborative effort if y'all can't tell.
Well, I love the way the coalition has formed and gotten people on board to assist. And Albert, I think it was really great hearing what you said about sort of a lot of different ideas crystallized together from different ideas that people had, right? And then it sort of built momentum around that. But um, how do you maybe talk a little bit more about how did you bring other agencies on board? You said you first launched it with a smaller group, and then that has grown from there. But um, you know, how did you bring different agencies and types of collaborators on board as this coalition grew?
So I'll say a little on this because I think at the city of San Jose, we took a few risks that I think paid off immensely. The first risk that we took was publishing a draft of our AI guidelines and saying, hey, public, tear this apart for us. That, I remember we did that back in mid 2023. And by doing that, so we put together this like 20-page draft generative AI guidelines. Basically, don't put your social security number into ChatGPT, please and thank you. Okay. We put that together and we had a discussion around how do we get feedback because no one was a Gen AI expert at that time. So how could we tap into the people that knew the most? Well, we decided that the way that we could do that was reaching out just publicly, just sharing it out and getting feedback from folks, similar to what Boston did, actually, right before us. And it was from that then led to like City of Austin, City of San Antonio starting to reach out to us and get that conversation started. The second component to that was taking the brave step of releasing things not only as uneditable PDF documents. I know this sounds like technical, but trust me, this was huge for us. And putting it out in editable Word documents. Being able to just crowdsource commentary, feedback, live editing onto documents, and saying as a government, like, hey, I'm ready to learn from you in that real time, huge for us. That enabled that sort of collaboration that people just grabbed onto because not only could we provide feedback and grow together, but as like Jamie was mentioning, now everyone can just copy and paste that. And there's no issue with that. And then the last part has been continually reminding our city and our leadership that, yes, we are investing time into other cities' prosperity. Like, I think one of the most common questions we get is, is this helping the city of San Jose or is this helping other cities? And the answer is yes, it's helping both. And it's helping both more than we could do if we were just trying to focus, right? Jamie said that I'm putting in hundreds of hours of this because I'm getting thousands of hours back. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And any follow-up on that, Andrew or Jamie?
Yeah, if I can just share there, I thought was, I remember, jumping into a Word doc. How often do you see a government agency that is so willing to be open and vulnerable? And I think that's really a key aspect in terms of the culture. And if you do come to one of the summits, this is what you'll see. The culture is significantly different. And so I want to say it in this way, it's a brave space where we are able to come together in all our forms of vulnerability and say, hey, actually, we don't know. But now that we know that we don't know, let's do something about it. So
Yeah, you can come to the group being a technical expert, not being a technical expert, being a business expert anywhere, right? And you're going to have something to contribute. Albert, that sparked my memory that I had a folder that I was keeping guidance from other cities in 2023, and I just went back and looked, and San Jose is one of them. I hadn't even made that, right? So we were already, like in CIO positions, we were looking, right? Who's doing what? And this brought us together. And I think that's why we were able to grow so quickly, because when people come to me and ask me, I'm like, I'm not the expert, but this is where the expertise is happening.
Great points. And I just love how this has organically grown. And it is like, speaking as somebody who is a non-technical expert around IT related issues, like I come bringing some training stuff to the AI education committee, but it's such a learning environment, and an environment that's really interested in sharing ideas and talking about ideas and how we can solve problems. So just following up, launching an initiative like this does come with some challenges. So are there any obstacles that you've encountered, and how have you overcome them?
Okay, so obstacles. Let's start off with the first one, which is uh everyone's just donating their time. This is, and I hope this isn't like I use the term, it's a mutual aid effort. And I hope that's not a politicized term at the moment, but I think it's something where really bringing people together to put in that effort, not just once, but again and again and again, is hard. It takes energy, it takes enthusiasm. Sometimes I know from my perspective, like finding ways to keep lighting that fire in all of these conversations, it takes energy. And especially before 9 a.m. in meetings, especially meeting with our lovely East Coast folks and folks around the country, bringing that energy, it's about kind of that empowering that infectious enthusiasm that allows us to keep going. I think one of the biggest things for us about resolving that has been a intentional practice of letting things flow. And so what I mean by that is, like, Rich, I'm looking at you, right? You run our education working group. There was a time when I was trying to figure out how are we going to start education, and then you started just pushing it. And it's like, how do I allow you to just do this and own it? And then the rest of us can like I'll try and make things as smooth as possible. Let's bring others into it. But, it's okay if it's not a centralized, like one person is trying to solve this. It's everyone trying to solve bits and pieces. And so, I don't know. Maybe that's not a particularly coherent thought, but I think that's what for me has been a constant solve of how do we keep people engaged and pushing for this in a volunteer entity. And I think it's been really around just like that gratefulness, that attitude, that energy, and that building a ownership of different pieces so that we can collectively solve this.
No, that's great, Albert. And I can sort of speak from personal experience. I think one of the really valuable things is in making this successful is there's people that have energy that come in and say, yes, I can help with this piece. But there's also this overlying assistance and structure from yourself and other members of your team that are helping facilitate all of these working groups that just really make it possible for somebody to come in and help out, and also pick up, um, help carry the load and pick up things and take them to the next step with you. So it does feel much like a partnership as these working groups and efforts have grown through the coalition. So.
Yeah, and with that, the city of San Jose is kind of our host, our home city, and there are at least three key people who really are helping to keep things moving forward. So you get 2,000 people together with tons of ideas, like that's great, but like how do you wrangle that? how to move forward cohesively. And we're so lucky to have the contributions of the city of San Jose. And one of the hurdles that we haven't solved yet is how do we continue moving forward? We all know that we're having cuts. Some of us are already getting cuts, this year. And so just, we're just exploring ideas like how can we keep the spirit of this alive, but make sure that like we have the funding to keep it going.
I can share from a different perspective. So I don't come from a government agency perspective, I come from a more of a startup perspective. And one of the things that we always say from a startup perspective is you get as much or if not more than what you put into it, right? So it's really up to you. You can just go with the flow or you can contribute. And the one thing I will say about the work that we've done, and I'm so happy to be part of this, is the amount of learning, the accelerated learning by doing. This whole action learning process has been, and maybe that's why it feels so much longer than a year or however long it's been. And so that constant motivation of like, today I'm going to a meeting with GovAI and I'm going to for sure learn something new that I can then at a macro level understand, and then I can then go apply it to my agency.
That's great. Thank you, Andrew. I couldn't agree more with that, that there's like such a give and take with the work that you put in and the effort that you get back out, or the result that you get back out from that. And sort of thinking about this, the GovAI Coalition is helping people with AI, but it isn't just about AI. It's sort of a model for how local governments can tackle big complex challenges. And I just wanted to get some sense. We've talked about this in some of the other answers, but based on your experience, what lessons can people apply to other initiatives at any scale? There might be working at something as a solution in a city or in a county, regionally, statewide, or, national like the coalition. But did you have experience coming from any other collaborative efforts? And what would you say to people who are interested in moving down into forming some kind of collaborative effort, such as this coalition?
Okay. So there's two things that I think are incredibly important in this. Um, One, I think in most cases, and frankly in government as a whole, it's important that we look before we leap when we're implementing policies and when we're doing work. However, when it comes to putting out drafts and getting out ideas, especially in this form of, coalition or working together environment, I would go so far to say that when it comes to drafting, it's important to leap before you look. Um, what we did is we just would put out, and this goes back to what a few of us would do is we would just take two or three people. They would draft up something, whether it be the first draft of the AI policy or the first draft of the contracting language you want to put with a vendor or the first draft of how you're thinking about use case. They just put together a draft. It's okay if it's bad, but you just have something that now people can react to. What I have seen in so many different circumstances is when you come into the meeting just saying, let's make a policy, it's really hard to get started. When you say, here's something on a paper, let's edit this together, all of a sudden all the brilliance comes in. And that's where the magic happens. So that's item one. Item two is what we found is knowing what we're trying to accomplish and partnering with everyone under the sun that is willing to go with that vision. When we first started the coalition, there were many different organizations that were trying to do pretty much the exact same thing. And each of them had their own inspiration. And I remember, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I remember in myself feeling a little like, is that competition? Does that mean that suddenly there's, is there enough food in the sea for this many fish? And we made a conscious effort to proactively partner with every group that we could find that had our same values and our same mission, because it was through building that network, that connection, that actually made us stronger. and sharing all the resources, sharing all the material, all of a sudden now we're building the ecosystem. It's not just about growing our slice of the pie, it's about growing the pie as a whole.
Great. I love both of those examples. I think they are very powerful. Jamie and Andrew, anything to add to what Albert just said?
I
Albert
think
rocked.
oh, yeah. If I can just add so from a startup perspective, a lot of people think about the pie and they're thinking about the idea. But when you're faced with a blank page, your mind goes blank. And so I think the action-oriented process that we've started with what Albert talked about, just put something out there and then invite everybody else to respond and react to it and say like, okay, well, how can we make this better? And that's what I was so impressed, I guess would be the word that I would use when we were looking through, like literally it was I'm sure it was hundreds, but I don't remember. But like everybody's looking through the policy and everybody was like busy kind of making comments and it was nonstop cycle of doing that. And yeah, so
Great. Thank you, Albert. And I'm sorry. Thank you, Andrew. I was looking at Albert's chat. So I'd like to shift us into sort of talking about AI's role in government and the available resources. So we know AI is already transforming government operations, streamlining processes, improving decision making, but implementing AI does come with challenges. So from your perspective, how is AI currently shaping local government operations?
I can start here. I mean, I think it's kind of across the board and what your approach is. In the city of St. Paul, we're taking, a much more measured internal approach to start with. Although the first thing that really got me excited is just around the ability to translate really quickly, to get information out to your communities. We have 4 official languages in St. Paul. We have 80 languages spoken in our school system. So for me, that's on my radar. That's moving out. We're focusing internally first, and really around like the time savings, right? We're doing a pilot with our emergency management department so they can pilot. They're almost fully grant funded. So they write all their first drafts of grants using ChatGPT teams. They write their training manuals, those first drafts, right? It's not taking away any jobs. We all have plenty of things to do, but it's getting that first draft out. So they're saving 4 or 8 hours. We're using a meeting assistant. So it's just easier. It's easier. We can have these conversations. We can pay attention. And then afterwards, you need a human, you need to go back, you need to read through those notes, but you have it all there for you. You can just make a couple of adjustments. You have all your takeaways. You can come back, 2 weeks later to that regular meeting and catch up exactly where you left off. So for St. Paul, and I know a lot of cities, who are taking a more measured, slow approach, we're really looking internally and just trying to, familiarize people with what AI is, what it can do. Get people a little comfortable. And then really we want to find like those problems that can't be solved with regular means right now. So for us, we're starting a little bit more slowly. Albert, Andrew, do you want to add?
Okay, so one of the things that I'll just highlight, and this is something that Jamie and the Use Cases Committee put out all of 5 days ago, was it's on our resources page. It's I think it's called like generative AI tools to get started now, or something along those lines. And when I think about using AI in your city or your agency, like first off, there's a good chance that some of the tools that you've already purchased are using AI in some shape or form. And that's okay. That's great. I would recommend you take a look and see if any of them are impacting like who gets access to benefits. But in general, awesome. Where we've seen a lot of value in the last couple of years is exactly what Jamie's mentioning, just that day-to-day, how do I use your ChatGPTs of the world, or your Perplexity, or your Anthropic, Claude, Copilot, whatever you want to call it, in your day to day. One of the upskilling programs that we've done in the city of San Jose, we call it upskilling because I don't know, sounds trendy, but point being is we are teaching our staff how to use, for us it's ChatGPT, but you could use any large language model tool, and just helping them. We show them how to use the tool, how to build their own AI assistant, and then from there they show us, oh, I think this could actually be really useful for drafting my memos, or for helping me write grant applications, or for summarizing my my minutes across those council meetings that I have to handle. What we found is we skilled up a cohort of around 20 folks in partnership with our local university, and they were on average saving about an hour a day from the work that they were doing. And we had super users that were saving 2-3 hours a day because their work was largely typing and analyzing data. And that was all them. We showed them a little bit of the tools, but it was that back and forth conversation of, I spent enough time on ChatGPT, you spent enough time in your job, let's learn from each other. That sort of empowerment, it takes max $20 a month or $30 a month for the subscription, and it was enough to find those ways to play around with it.
It's great. And I love that upskilling example and the work that you did to sort of demonstrate the value that like training people has on using these tools. It's just really tremendous to sort of get some quantitative information about how this is saving time and can be benefit agencies. Um, Andrew, anything you want to add to that
Yeah,
conversation?
actually, I do. Thank you for asking. I think what is hard is the perception of like this whole amount of stuff that I may not be familiar with. And so the demystifying process is important with Jamie, who leads use cases, and I'm on translation use case, is that we walk through that. And you're not alone doing that. And so suddenly it's like, oh, in my mind, I thought it was really hard. But now that you walk through it and the video's there and all that, okay, well, I can do that too. And then I can go, like now, we're applying to our agency. And so the ability to learn from that perspective is huge.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Andrew,
I love that thought.
I just want to spotlight what y'all are. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that translation chatbot that y'all built and shared?
Sure. So, so we've had U.S. digital response really help to demonstrate. Here's how you build custom chatbot. But it didn't just start from the chatbot. It started with the issue of it starts with the challenge or the problem, which is government terms are not necessarily well translated. And so that's where it started. We started with like, hey, can we, crowdsource all the different government terms across all the agencies? And how can we put it together? And once we've identified that, then we can start to say, okay, well, we can translate this as a phrase, or and a concept, or we can translate word for word, depending on the language or the dialect too. And then we went on to, the city of San Jose to, they created a custom GPT for chatbot for translation. And then that was shown, USDR helped with that to say, okay, here's how you build your own chatbot. Add the custom terms in that. And then the most recent one we had, I think we recorded it, which was how do you evaluate quantitatively and qualitatively through a rubric the output from the chatbot in translation. So, and then we're continuing to move forward on a number of different angles as well. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Oh, that's an amazing tool and an amazing example of how a tool like that can grow organically for sure, with feedback, right? Um, and just really quickly, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges agencies are facing when integrating AI, and how can the Government AI Coalition help with those challenges?
I mean, I'll start, again, as a city that's, taking, slower steps. I mean, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a policy, if you don't have governance, if you don't have any use cases, you have nothing. Like, this is where you come. We will hand it to you. Like, that's the biggest part sometimes is just, where do I start? Where do I go? Um, I think I'm just so grateful and thankful that we have all these resources here. People who I'm talking to locally, I try to pull them in, like, we have it all here. You don't have to do this work. We all have too much to do. And I think the great thing too is that when we have challenges, all of us who are on the board or who are in leadership positions here, we're all having challenges in implementation in our cities and our counties and our states, right? And so we have this group of people to bounce ideas off of. So, I mean, I'll go with that general, like, if you have any questions, if you have no idea where to start, or if you're already at 50, there are going to be people in the coalition who are there with you and can help you along the way.
Great, thank you. And Albert and Andrew, anything to add to that around GovAI Coalition solutions that can help with these problems?
Yeah, so I think the learning from our perspective as a mid-sized Midwest city is building the foundational aspects, right? Really understanding and learning from the coalition of those who have more advanced or further along on the journey to make that happen. In our case, foundational structures like ensuring that our data across the entire organization has the same way of our systems or our process or how we collect data or how we agree to share data or the APIs and all of the different, essentially our data practice management and data practices. For us, that's foundational, and so we're working through those different things because the idea of the story of the bamboo, right? It grows 6 months underground, nothing to show, and then after the 6 month, it shoots up into the sky. And so really, I would say the foundational aspects that you need to consider in advance of saying, hey, we're going to launch this thing, because you need to create the structure and then you need to create the pathways for that to happen.
I'll just add one little thing there. Come in to the coalition and be loud and ask for help. I'm not gonna sit here and say that web design is my passion or that we have a perfect online interface or a way to find everything when you're just getting started. But what I can say is we've got hundreds, thousands of people here that have been through this. They have become a part of the coalition. And we're just excited to help you in the same way that someone was excited to help me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll add too, we're talking really broad, but if you have more details that you want. So Andrew was just talking about the translation working group and the chat, the GPT translation chatbot that they created, right? That's something that anybody could sign up to do. Anybody could sign up and work with Andrew. And as we're rolling into our next phase of the coalition, we're going to do a lot more in my group about hands-on building a model. Who knows how to build a model? I have no idea how to build a model, but I'm really excited to learn how and send people on my team here. So it's a physical thing. You can see how it's done. There's no mystery behind it. So really it just those big things, but then also, we're doing hands-on work. And if you want exposure, if you want people to upskill, right? If you have people on your teams who are interested, send them over. They're going to get a lot of education.
I can just add one last thing there. I want to spotlight procurement and cooperative purchasing. A lot of times procurement ends up becoming the front door from a vendor perspective. Then Albert talked about the AI fact sheet, concerns with algorithmic bias, and what are the data agreements or contractual documents that you actually have to set in place in order for that, even the ones that are non-IT. Particularly if there's reporting involved, there's going to be data transfer. So a lot of all these different things that we're working through right now.
Great. Thank you for that. And, I wanted to also mention one of the things I thought was really valuable when I first came, to the coalition was in one of the guides, there's a explanation of like, here are the six big questions that we've seen that are common questions that agencies are struggling with. And here's the immediate solution that the coalition has drafted to help with that question. And I thought that might be something really valuable to share with this group too, because that's sort of like, how do I get started and like just draft a policy, and then here's some guidance, further guidance in the AI policy and procedures manual, and then getting into like, how do I make sure I, am looking at terms for vendors that I might want to bring on board to help with this, and there's a solution around that. So I thought that's a really helpful way to structure things visually and help people understand how the coalition can help them. So thank you, Albert, for sharing that in the chat. That's the starter guide. It's really helpful if anybody's really wanting to know how the GovAI can help them get started. That's a really great place to start. So I know we're about 15 minutes before we end today. I wanted to take some time to open the floor to questions. And Nancy, do you want to help us with the questions section right now?
Yes. So there were two in chat that I want to share. I'll share the first one from William. How can people get more involved with GovAI? Do you collaborate with local groups such as the Kansas City AI Club or organizations in other states beyond California? So that's our first one. And then one more. And I'll post these into our group chat there too. Are there any ongoing or upcoming international collaborations or initiatives with GovAI aimed at promoting responsible AI practices across borders? And if so, could you share some details on your approach and partnerships? I've popped those in the chat for our hosts and panelists.
I can start talking about international partnerships because that is something that we are exploring. We really started heavily exploring at the end, near the end of 2024. And I think, Albert, you were on the call with me, potentially with a Canadian ambassador, in fact, to the United States. And we talked about a partnership in terms of getting more of their startup ventures involved in the coalition, because it's not just public sector that's involved. We do invite vendors. There's a lot of vendors in this space. There's a lot of small vendors with really great tailored front door technologies for us that are going to bring value. And so that's one example of reaching out across borders and really wanting to have those partnerships. I mean, that one is going to be that one has not moved forward yet this year, but I know that we do want to reach out to them to see if they do want to continue that partnership. But I know that there's some I brought someone from New Zealand into the use cases group to talk about the work that they're doing in their public agencies. We have, I think, Urban AI, which is based out of France, I believe. Andrew, Albert, do you know of others that we're currently focusing on?
Yeah, we had some conversations also with Denmark as well, and I've already started some conversations with a number of other different countries, Latin America as well. But ultimately, if you want to participate, go to the website, click register, and that's really it. And I would say not just startups, academia, healthcare systems, schools, emergency services, fire, police, all the varieties of public agencies. So it's not really just limited to what you would think of as government. You could be also, if you're a private citizen that you want to engage and you feel like you have something to contribute or you want to learn, that is also another pathway.
I'll just add a little bit. We get this question a lot around international growth or how to get more involved or where to grow things. This is a grassroots movement. I I hope we've made that clear. And one of the things about I find to be very amazing about a grassroots movement is that if something wants to grow, we just need someone to grow it. Everything here started because one person, you know, was motivated enough to just say, "Yeah, I'm gonna spend the time to make this freaking thing happen." Um, and that's how we grow this forest. So you know, I encourage you, like Andrew and Jamie said, um, if there's something that you want to see in it, like come on in, say you want to do it, and then lead the charge.
Yeah, totally. And I think that also is reflective in, coming to join us as a member, right? If you come to join us as a member, you're not signing up for anything other than like joining and maybe coming to a meeting or two, right? And maybe you won't find value, maybe it won't be your cup of tea, maybe you're just too busy, but I would highly encourage you to just sign up and come to one of our just core coalition monthly meetings. That's where we recap all the great things that are done every single month, and you see that progress and you see what's happening. So we're not going to expect anything of you. Like, you can sign up, and if you never make it, that's okay. But we think that if you sign up and you come to a meeting, you're going to come to another meeting. You're going to want to take some of the resources because they're there for you, and then you may be a contributor in the future.
Great, thank you. And while we're talking about that, Albert, I know you've been sharing a lot of links. Did you drop a link in for people to sign up if they want to sign up for the coalition? That's coming.
And I'll just make a plug while Albert's doing that. I just learned something new today on the education group that Rich chaired just about an hour or two ago. And that was an ethics first AI literacy approach. Super awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing. We had a nice presentation from the city of Austin, who's done a really nice AI survey of their employees. 1,500 employees responded. So great set of data, and I think there's going to be some great stuff coming from that for sure. Any other questions, Nancy?
Yes, we have another one from Victoria. It says, have you seen any AI automations done in an asset management system? We are slowly implementing our computerized maintenance management system and just wondered if any agencies have started using AI to help with building reports, dashboards, queries, etc.
On the use case committee side, I don't think that has been brought up yet as a topic, as far as I know, though, but we have a couple of, very involved working groups that it might have. So that isn't one that I have heard of. Albert, Andrew?
So I'll just speak to this because this one got a little chip on my shoulder here at the city of San Jose. Um, Absolutely, right? I want to make clear, right? That type of asset management reports, dashboards, that once you have the data in a nice, clean format, that is quite literally as simple as loading it into Copilot or ChatGPT or Google Gemini or pick your choice, and then asking it those questions. The hard part is getting it in that standardized, whether it be a CSV, Excel file format, right? It's the data governance conversation. So if you got the data in that format, great. This is actually why we're starting up the data governance committee in April, led by Anthony from Colorado and Jonathan and Brendan from San Diego, alongside some folks from Seattle and San Jose, to create that, to like help folks figure that out. Because frankly, this is something that we're trying to solve too.
I can just harp on the data governance piece a little bit more. That is the foundational structure that agencies will need to make sure across the board, end to end, that you're making it standardized Otherwise, we've heard the term garbage in, garbage out. So
Thank you, Andrew.
We've got
Nancy,
another
any?
one. Jennifer, and she says, how are agencies measuring and tracking the success of AI adoption efforts? And what KPIs have been most effective in assessing impact and user engagement?
Forgive me, I need to read this. Oh, okay. So I can speak from San Jose, the adoption metrics that we've been using, and this is one we're lucky enough at the moment to have taken a small investment into using an enterprise tool. So right now we have about 40 folks on licenses with ChatGPT. That's not to promote ChatGPT, everyone has their own tools that works for them. That's just the one that we're using at the moment. And on the back end, I'm able to see like how many chats people create with their own custom assistants. So that's been a huge measure, seeing how many custom assistants they create. And then also we work in a at least a good chunk of our staff work in a centralized city hall. So we just printed out a QR code with a flyer and put it on every floor and said, hey, if you're using ChatGPT, can you tell us about it? And we know that we're only going to get about 10% of people actually reporting that, but that helps us understand how people are using it, which then informs the type of training that we want to do moving forward.
Thank you, Albert, for giving that detailed feedback. I love the idea of getting some behind the scenes look at how people are using this. That is a really great metric. Nancy, any other final questions?
I do not see any other final questions nor hands up. So last call, if anybody has any questions, and I believe we've gotten everything out of the Q&A. Let me check one more time.
Okay, and while we're surfacing questions, I know we just have a few minutes left, but I'm hoping each of our panelists might give us 30 seconds or so of like, what is a final thought that you'd want people to go away with from this panel session today?
I'll start and I'll say that this has been just some of the most rewarding, fun, and hard work that I've done in my career. And we're coming together in a conference once a year. We had our first one in December. We're going to have another in November, and it was just the best conference that I have ever been to. Just the heart and the passion and the excitement of just government coming together and making a big difference together has been amazing. And while that is happening, we're actually doing things to help our jurisdictions, which is amazing.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that. Like join the coalition and let the energy like have fun with it. I cannot tell you how many days I'm like, okay, I'm tired. I'm tired from my regular job. I'm tired from doing this. And then Jamie hits me with a reminder that we all do better when we all do better. And all of a sudden, my spirit is like lit up again and we're ready to change the world again. And I just no, it's a blessing. Have fun with it.
Thank you, Andrew.
absolutely. Yeah. So I'll leave you with 4 H's: your head, hand, heart, and home. Theory needs to be practiced. I'm doing it with passionate people, and we have a home to make that happen. So proud to be part of it.
Great. Thanks, all of you. And this has been a really fantastic discussion. I think there's a lot of great information you shared today that's really going to help us and help our attendees with not only navigating AI, but navigating any complex program they find themselves working on or problem they find themselves working on. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Nancy is going to drop the evaluation link in the panel, in the chat. So we'd love if you could give us some feedback. That really helps us as we plan out these panel sessions. Albert, Jamie, Andrew, thank you so much. It's been such a great pleasure to have you here today and to work with you in the coalition. Constantly inspired by the coalition people that I work with. through that effort. And we'd love to have you back sometime to talk about AI further down the road. So with that, I want to wish everybody a great day and thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Rich.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.